I did.
And I haven't been around in almost 30 years.
See what I'm saying? Oh my God. But those people will still call me King. They're gonna go back to King before they go back to base. But my apologies.
Yeah, so that
My
goes to show you how
apologies.
long Dr. Kim and I have been friends. So I am Tiffany Brown Walker, and what do you want me to do? Just introduce myself?
Yeah,
Tell
just
them
tell
what?
them a little
Tell
bit
them something about
about
myself?
yourself.
Um, in relation to this conversation?
It can be. Whatever
Okay.
you want them to know. One tonight.
I am a mental health advocate. Am the founder and CEO of a nonprofit organization called Blind Faith Chicago. We educate, advocate for communities of color in relations to mental health. And I do this because mental health is my passion from my gut. I am currently in nursing school. I will be graduating in about 7 to 8 weeks, finishing up that bachelor's in nursing. This is a career change for me. So with a hope of going into psychiatric nursing to continue to make a difference in communities of color, because it's not enough of us trying to make that difference. As it relates to being on this panel, I was married to someone who had severe narcissistic tendencies. And it took me a while to get out. And then it probably took me twice as long to heal. So that is why I'm here.
Amen. There are stages, and I'm glad you differentiated that, because that is one of my questions. Like, how did you decide, make the decision to free yourself? And then what did it look like to heal? And that is why we're here tonight, to talk about that process. It is possible, but it is a process. And then to my right, which may be your left, I hope I get this one right, is also a lovely individual who I've known for more than half my life. It is the lovely Camille. I don't even want to, I'm not going to mess up your middle name, Robinson.
It's Chewy. It's for my niece. That is.
See, and I know I was going to put the N in there. That's why I was like, let me just leave it alone. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Oh, I am the second born daughter to a preacher and a musician. I am the mother of 3 amazing children. And in 7 months, in 14 days, 27 weeks, something like that, I don't know, I will be a proud graduate or mother of a graduate of my third born and only son.
Yes.
Oh, an empty nester coming about.
Beautiful. Hallelujah. That grocery bill, the electric bill gonna go down considerably.
Man, a lot of things are gonna go down. But I'm also the lead vocalist for an incredible band called the Experience Band. And just enjoying life as it comes. As it relates to this panel, I too was married to someone who has narcissistic tendencies.
Ooh, we could talk about that.
And reflect, right, right. And reflecting on this whole process from the day that you asked for me to be a part of it, I had to learn and accept that the narcissism did not start in my marriage. It started in my child home, around family members who made me feel like I was hypersensitive or try to impose their reality of what they thought I was thinking on me, and not really taking into consideration what I was actually feeling, but telling me what I was feeling. So I have not been married since 2010. I have been in on and off relationship. I don't even want to call them relationships because they couldn't have been, for the things that happened in them. And I feel like I am still, even now, still healing from all of that. From 20 something plus years, I am still actively healing.
It is a process. It is a process. And like I said, there's layers and there's levels.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that, but I am glad that you are here to share. And last but not least, the incomparable Dr. Beverly Jordan. Please tell people a little bit about yourself. You've been here before, so I know those who follow the broadcast will recognize your lovely smile, but refresh their memory who you are and what brings you here tonight.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. My name is Beverly Jordan. I am a divorced mother of two beautiful daughters, 28 and 20. I am an empty nester. My baby is in college, and I'm living my best life as an empty nester. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you are.
And I am currently a school administrator, principal of elementary school, Chicago Public Schools, 32 years in the game, on my way out soon in the next few years.
Countdown begins.
Absolutely. 15 years as a school administrator. So that's my passion. That's where I'm supposed to be. Love doing it. I'm here. And Dr. Kim can attest to I wasn't married to one, but I was in a long-term relationship about 8 years with someone who was actually my childhood sweetheart, and we came back full circle, and I thought he was the one that I was supposed to be with for the rest of my life, and found out somewhere along the way that that was a lie. Narcissistic personality disorder to the 3rd degree. And on top of that, I had a boss that was one as well. So I had it like, oh man, my therapist once told me, she said, it's a wonder you haven't lost your mind, because you have one in the house living with you, and you have to go to work and deal with one. So Lord Jesus, that's all I can say.
That's what tells you how strong you are. Sometimes you don't know how strong you are until you
absolutely. So
you found out. So it's interesting. You took excellent segue. We got 2 listeners right on the screen. So if you see folks not moving around, they're our in-house audience, right? They're our studio audience on the screen. You perfect segue into what I wanted to do, which is set the stage for when we say narcissism and narcissistic personalities, what we're talking about. And I was discussing this earlier this week with somebody. I said, it sounds relatively new. Like we used to call people narcissistic growing up, and that was basically folks who were vain, right? Oh, they stare in the mirror all the time. They're so, so narcissistic. And so in doing my research for the last show, as well as this show, this is still an evolving diagnosis. So even in the DMV, which is used by clinicians, there's still very little, I would say, intensive research being done for this. But because there's been so many patterns, right, of the behaviors that you're going to hear described here tonight, they had to put a name to it. And so the name that is ascribed to this behavior, or to this psychosis, if you will, is the term that Dr. Jordan used, which is narcissistic personality disorder. And so now I must put on my glasses so I can share a little bit from a note. Well, say this is in my notes. I got notes. And so narcissistic personality disorder is a pattern of these behaviors, and you're going to hear a lot of this tonight: grandiosity, the need for admiration, and the lack of empathy, which is the biggest one, right? And this is per the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, kindly known as the DSM-5. This disorder is classified in the dimensional model of personality disorders, meaning it's highly comorbid with other disorders in mental health. And I know that Tiffany can, I said, connect with that. Persons with NPD can often present with impairment that impairs them from maintaining work as well as relationships. And you heard Dr. Jordan talk a little bit about how that does show up in the workplace. And so even though it's highly prevalent in our society, again, still not a lot of research done. When a person is diagnosed, there's no clinical diagnosis though for the subtypes. And that's what I want to hit on a little bit tonight. there's 8 types of narcissists, okay? 8 types of narcissists, okay? And so the one thing I thought was really interesting, and I think you all can attest to this as well, is that in thinking about narcissism, what we have to understand is there's a little narcissist in all of us, right? So when we talk about toxic relationships, all of us can be a little bit toxic from time to time. But when we look at this as a disorder, we have to think about there's levels, right? There's a spectrum. So there's folks who, okay, they're a little stuck on themselves. And then there's all the way on the other end of the spectrum, people who, like I said, lack empathy and look to destroy. The book that I'm reading now, and I was hoping that I would be done reading by tonight, but I'm not. It's called Prepare to be Tortured, Being Married to a Narcissist. And the other edition is Prepare to be Tortured, Being Married to a Narcissist. So it's from the dating perspective and from the married perspective. And we have that represented here tonight as well. So I want you to think about that. It's a spectrum. Everybody has a little bit, but these folks are out of whack, gone all the way to the other side. So the first kind of narcissist, I'm gonna go kind of fast so we can get into the stories, but the first kind of narcissist is a healthy narcissist, right? This is somebody who, hey, they kind of feel entitled to be in certain spaces and have a certain amount of attention on them. And, but they're pretty much in line with reality. Like you can kind of tease them out of it. Oh, you're doing way too much. Oh, you just kind of extra, might be the term that we use for them. And they go, okay, you know, you're right, my bad. I back up. But then we have the grandiose narcissism. Oh, we know them, which kind of connects to the broader understanding of this disorder. They overestimate their abilities. They assert their dominance over others, and they have a very general inflated sense of self-esteem. Okay. They don't relate to people. They're always competitive with others, trying to be one up on them. So whatever you say, they're going to bring something to, well, I do that better, or I have more of that, or whatever. So grandiose narcissism. These folks crave attention, but what sets them apart from that healthy narcissism is they enjoy seeing others hurt or confused or both. So they push buttons on those that are closest to them, especially to see them hurt, to inflict hurt on them. And I saw a lot of head nod on that one. Now here's the one that I tended to entertain, so I laugh at this one. The vulnerable or covert narcissist. Those seem to be my favorites because me being an empath, everybody wants to come for healing. So they come all broken and they seem really, I'll say, shy and, like I said, self-effacing, you know, nobody really has understood me. I've been abandoned and this kind of thing. And then when they suck you in and realize that you bought the story, then they come in for the kill. So yes, they may have been hurt before and it may be true, but it's not our duty to rescue them or save them. And what you find out when you deal with a covert narcissist is it's impossible to save them because they're not trying to heal. They're just trying to use you and abuse you for all the hurt that's happened to them. The fourth one, the malignant narcissist, just like the name implies, they're manipulative and malicious. They show signs of sadism and aggression. They're the most severe type of narcissistic personality disorder. They get pleasure seeing people writhe in pain and discomfort. So they take it a whole nother level. Like they're not happy until you cry. I was talking to my sister-in-law about this the other day, and she said, you remember when he knew what to say to you to make you cry. He wouldn't be satisfied until you were crying and crying uncontrollably. And then he'd get real quiet. And she said, in hindsight, you could tell it was like inside he was enjoying it because it's like, good, I got you. These folks actually work at it. They spend their lives trying to perfect being better narcissists, okay? And the only way that you can heal from this particular kind of narcissist is completely cutting them off. There's no other way. You can't back out. Slowly, you just have to completely sever all ties. Now, this one I thought was interesting, and I had not seen this before. And this was the sexual narcissist. Now the Scorpio in me just had to know, right? I'm like, oh my, there's a sexual narcissism. You asked me when we're gonna be real, we're gonna be real. Let me take a sip. Let's all take a sip together, shall we? Because I thought this one was interesting. Cheers. Okay. All right. So these folks have an overly positive, egotistical admiration of their own sexual prowess. They can become consumed by their obsession with sexual performance and the need for sexual admiration from others. So they're not just going to bounce you off the walls to bounce you off the walls. They got to bounce you off the walls so you'll worship them. They playing to win. Let me say more. So the sexual narcissists are often serial cheaters as well. They use sex to manipulate people and may behave violently during sex. So when they get you to the moment of vulnerability, that's where the punishment is. So you see how the other narcissists kind of punish with words, right? Or they punish with abandoning you or pushing you away or ignoring you. These folks punish you in the bed. Is that insane? I'm gonna get you right there now. Wow. And turn on you. And at first you're like, okay, I see you. Is that what you want? And you go, oh no, this ain't good. It took a turn for the worse. Okay. So this one, they said, is part of a 3-part narcissism system that includes somatic narcissism and cerebral narcissism. I was like, oh my God, not the sexual, they're gonna get you in the bed too. So let's talk about the somatic narcissism. We only got 3 more. They manifest as someone feeling more beautiful, stronger, or fitter than others. So this is kind of like narcissism on steroids. So everything is about them. Everything is about how they look, how they appear. And again, the overwhelming need of affirmation. You got to tell me you're beautiful. I was around one the other day. I said something, I thought something was on the back of their head. And it's like, is something wrong with my hair? No, nothing's wrong with your hair. What, do you don't like my haircut? No, actually your hair looks very nice. What about my beard? Your beard does as well. It's all started because you had lint on you. I'm sorry. Wow. This is a family member, so thank God it's not, you know,
fishing for compliments. That's a bit much.
Like
but it's constant. It's constant, right? And again, it's a need that cannot be met. That's what you find with each of these. Like, does not matter what you try to do, what they're saying they need, whatever you do, they're going to up the ante. It's something else and you're missing the mark. So here's the cerebral narcissist. And I recently met one of these. Watch this now, Beverly, you're going to love this one. This is somebody, the cerebral or intellectual narcissist. They derive their self-importance from their minds. So they like to show off how much they know. And of course, what's the reverse and how little you know. So I got one that came from me. Well, of course, if I can stump the doctor, then that makes me really somebody. Well, doc is going to tell you, I know what I know, but I also know what I don't know. So you're not going to get me. Because if you tell me something I don't know, really? Well, I be done. Well, send me the link, so I can read some more. And it's like, no, I got to come back harder next time. Well, certainly you've heard of this. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is textbook. So they believe they're smarter than others. And in an attempt to feed their ego, they try to make you feel unintelligent. If you're dealing with a cerebral narcissist, insulate yourself from their words. Okay, just don't even, you're never going to win an argument or get to a point where they admit their rights. So just let it go. So when that person shares with me, I just go, wow, isn't that something? So I'll play, the nut just to make you go away. Now, church ladies, where's the church ladies? Are y'all there? Y'all are there. Okay, listen to this. The last one, the spiritual narcissist.
Come on, Jesus.
The spiritual narcissist. I got this one in all caps. And we all know at least one of these. So they use their spirituality to justify their harmful behavior and use spiritual jargon to intimidate others. So they put themselves on the pedestals, like there's the Father, there's the Son, there's the Holy Spirit, and there's them. Like so, somewhere in between one of those layers. And we all said you're wrong. The Father talks to me, he talks through me. He told me to tell you that you're wrong. It's a special place in hell for you, and you have reservations. The spiritual narcissist. Take a sip from me, Camille, because I got to finish reading this last part. They are especially harmful to young people. Listen.
Ain't they? Ain't they?
Especially
That's
harmful
how
to
young people leave the church.
Hey, come on, whole nother show for another day. Leave it, never to return. Okay. They especially target young people though who are going through some type of life transition, like a divorce in a family, or they've just moved. So they're looking for somebody, just like the other narcissists do. They look for empaths, right? They look for somebody who's vulnerable, who they see as weak. So these people actually prey on young folks. Okay. So if you know somebody who uses their spirituality as a tool to manipulate or belittle you, this is another one. They say you just have to separate yourself. There's really no way to just kind of diminish it. You have to cut it completely off. So remember, you can encounter these personalities to some degree, but it doesn't mean these people have clinical psychosis, but these behaviors are definitely some that we want to consider and look out for, and consider the spectrum of their severity. And so now we're going to get into it. So all of these women have identified that they were at some point in a relationship with somebody who was very high on the spectrum of narcissism. You can talk about it at some point if you know that they actually were clinically labeled or not, but I think we will be able to glean from the descriptions that they're, like I said, high on the spectrum, so they probably would be primed for that. But let's start with Tiff. Can you describe the lowest point in the relationship? And maybe within that, what caused you to end it, or what caused you to leave? So the lowest point. And the reason why we're going through this is because before we go to the mountaintop, we gotta go to the valley. So I really want people to know how bad
first of all,
so that healing is so much stronger.
Sure, I'll do that. But Kim, check your feed, because I don't know if it's really, is it live? Because I went to check from my phone and I don't see the link. So make sure it's live in the group.
Okay, it looks like we still there. Let me see.
Because
I have a couple of people who are looking for it and they can't find it.
So. Yeah, I can't see it either. Okay, so that's number one. Let's.
I don't know what to do because we're still here. It's saying live on the screen, but it's not live there. I don't know. But go ahead and talk while I figure out the technical part of it.
Yeah.
It says live on my screen too.
What'd you say?
It says live on my screen too.
Okay.
All right. You can also communicate through on the there.
Chat. Check your who do you have it going to, like your, whether it's public, group only, or whatever. Check that.
They said they said we're good. So go ahead with your story.
All righty. So my story, is part of it, I'll say, is the reason why I was able to manipulate as bad as it did is because my self-esteem was really bad. I met my, give you the story. I met my husband at my ex-boyfriend's house, which is probably not the best place to meet a man, because I didn't have no business being over there in the first place, but I was. And then we hit it off. And the reason I ended up marrying him is because after I had been sexually assaulted, he just seemed to have been, he was there. And I just sort of, I guess, fell into he's here for me. So this must be the person I need to be with. But when you 20, 21 years old, you young, dumb, and stupid. So we married, and on went blissful life. And we used to tell each other, oh, this will be the only marriage we have. I'm only doing it once. We love each other and all of that. And my mother kept saying, yeah, this is not necessarily the right thing. And I was like, oh, what do you know? You got married at 18. At least I'm older than you. She knew something, So self-esteem is low. Self-esteem is bad. as a victim of multiple forms of sexual trauma, you know that already plays a part into where you are mentally and emotionally. And I wasn't aware. And so I did not know what to look for. So I have to preface all of that is I didn't know what to look for. But over the years, what I see now, that what happened was things had to always be a certain way. I always like to call him the sleeping with the enemy guy.
Ooh.
Things had to be lined up a certain way. Certain things you could never run out of. Like things just had to be that way. Then when we had the kids, the rules were nobody else could babysit them. And so that was to keep me from going out. You know, now we live down the street from my parents. So how hard is it for me to walk down the street and give my kids to my parents? But that was a problem. If I wanted to go out, I'd bring the kids to my parents, I'd go out, but I had to come back home and pick up my kids before he got home from work, because when I tell you the fights we would have, those would be the things. And I never could understand what's the problem. They're ours. Nobody should be raising them. They're not raising them. They watch them for a few hours. So it was those kind of issues. Then there would be days when he would tell me things weren't right. I needed to change. There was never anything he saw he needed to do.
Of course not.
It was always something I needed to do. I needed to cook more. So then I would cook 2 meals a day versus 1, because he worked nights. So I had to cook 2 meals so that he could have one to take 2 meals, 1 for lunch, 1 for dinner, because he worked late. Or it was like things like that. Like there was never anything when there would be those times where he wasn't happy and I needed to change. I'm like, well, what about this? There was never a time when he would say, well, I hear how you're feeling. Let me make some alterations. We did therapy. Therapist gave us homework. He never did it.
Brother gonna do it.
Like one of the days he was off 2 days during the middle of the week. Therapist was like, okay, one of your days during the week, why don't you all go out? Date night, like, they're my days off. I should do what I want to do.
Oh, wow.
So I said then once, I said, well, when are my days off? Well, you're off on the weekend. No, I'm off work on the weekend. But when do I get to be off like what you're talking about? You're completely off. So once I came up with a schedule, one day, one of your days off in a month, let's do this. Like I was like, let's just do, couples day, this day, like, oh no, they're my days off. I do what I want to do. So that's what he literally did. Never spent time because they were his. He could do what he wanted. When I went back to school, he was convinced that I picked my schedule to coincide with his days off so that he couldn't go anywhere because he had to stay home with the kids. I said, I don't choose, and you understand this, Kim.
Yes.
The student doesn't choose the day. The teachers decide what day they're going to teach class. And he was convinced that I had manipulated that,
Right.
It was those kind
all
of
about
things.
him.
It was all about him. So I say that he was I could never decide which type of narcissist he was, but he's so bad of a narcissist that he's still there, that he doesn't have a relationship with the littles. He doesn't even understand why he doesn't have a relationship with our son. Because when he left, Wesley was 11. And I made sure, I was like, okay, well, you're gone, but I'm not going to stop you from seeing anybody. I'm not that person. So first it was, he came to the house, and then it was every time he came, he wanted me to hang out with him when he was hanging out. I was like, no, you didn't come to see me, you came to see him. So when he would come in the front door, I'd go out the back door.
Now I didn't want to I don't want to go on date night with you. I didn't want to do
right. You didn't want to do anything.
But now I want to hang out with you and come to visit your son.
First, I used to hang upstairs, and he kept calling me down. So that's when I started leaving.
Control.
And then he found out I would go down to my mother's house. So he was like, well, call down there and tell her to come back. And I was like, no, let me get in my car and drive away. So, because then now all of a sudden you want to spend time with me. Like, this is weird. So that's how it ended up being. So the night he told me he wanted to leave, that was a Friday night. He didn't tell me he wanted to leave. He told me that he was unhappy and I needed to change again. So this is like the third or fourth time he's done that to me. And it's the middle of the night and I'm sitting there, and this was a Friday. And like earlier that week, I'd gone to lunch with a friend of mine who's now passed on. And she has said to me how she didn't know who I was anymore.
Wow.
And I've known her for years. And I was pissed at her. Because how dare you? I'm like, we've been friends for too long. How do you not know who I am? And blah, 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 blah. And she was like, who did you become? Like, this is not my friend Tiffany. And she said, I tell you what, when you become my friend, call me.
Wow. Wow.
Then fast forward to like that weekend, that Friday night, and he comes in and he's sitting on the side of the bed, and I wake up and I'm like, what's wrong? I can't do this anymore. I don't know who you are. I need you to change it. You need to do this more. And I was like, my friend is resonating in my head.
Right. You're like, this is the second time I'm hearing this.
You know, I'm thinking this is like the third time you've done this to me. I literally I'm so drained and miserable. I'm 65 pounds overweight. I want to take my life. When I pull up to my house and I see your car, I'm throwing up in the garbage cans in the alley. Like, I am dying a slow, painful death.
Literally.
And you talking about, I need to change. And I looked at him that day and I said, I have nothing left to give you.
Nothing.
What day are you moving? Because the house was mine.
Well.
And that was in February. And he didn't expect that. And I said to him, I graduated in May. If you could just get me through to May, because I was doing student teaching. And you know, student teachers don't work, right?
Correct.
And I said, if you could just get me through May, we don't have to sleep together no more. You don't have to sleep in a bed with me no more. You don't have to do anything. But if you could just get me through May, we'll be done. And the day my semester ended, that Friday day, the day that was my last day of student teaching, when I came home, he was moved completely, totally out of the house.
Then I thought you were going to say he wouldn't give you that.
No, he was gone. He was gone.
Ooh, thank God.
And that's when we started doing the visitations and all of that. And for the longest time, although I still, for like 2 years after that, I still kept begging, like, can we work it out? Because I just kept thinking, my mom and dad didn't divorce. My grandparents didn't divorce. This is not who we are. We are still trying to work it out. But he kept telling me, it is what it is. And so I went to therapy for me.
All right.
And I stayed until I could get me together.
Okay, now we're going to pause right there. Because like I said, but I wanted you to take us, like I said, to that lowest part, like you said.
It was the lowest point.
You can't even go. I said that was when you told me you can't even go in your house. Just the sight of his car.
I would pull up if his
my
car was
God.
there. I was literally throwing up in the garbage cans in my alley. I didn't want to throw up on the street or whatever, because that breeds stuff. But I would open up those city garbage cans and throw up. You shouldn't have to do that going into your house.
Not to go home.
No, because home is supposed to be where you're supposed to have peace.
That's your sanctuary. Absolutely.
Yep.
A shelter away from the rest of the world.
The rest of the world.
The rest of the world.
You're supposed to throw up on the rest of the world, not your house.
Okay. Honestly. But listen to the resilience. And it's a shame. That's a whole nother show for another day. The resilience of a woman. And I would venture to say a Black woman, in the midst of all of that, she said, I need to finish what it is I started. In spite of this personal pain, I still want to finish. And I got to commend you for that. That's a a work ethic, and I'll say a character trait that I don't see in younger generations. Maybe my age is telling, but because I see younger people break down for much worse.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, much less,
But
know.
that's because
and,
we were raised by boomers.
These are facts, right? The greatest
Yeah.
generation, they are
Gen
called.
X, Gen X kids have an ethic that Gen X kids have an ethics that I think no other generation will ever see, to be honest with you. I'm just saying. And maybe I'm kind of biased because I'm a Gen Xer, but something about being raised by them freaking boomers. That's all I can say. Because them boomers was crazy.
Just a little bit. And so in line with this conversation, we could say, and I'm gonna say this gently, that subsequent generations after that are somewhat narcissistic.
Since I'm raising one of them kids that's got all the levels of entitlement and don't understand why the world ain't going her way.
Like honestly, like,
and I don't care what I do to her, she still think the world revolves around her. I can't figure it out. But we're gonna digress. Let's go.
Yeah, that's gonna be another show. Let me say this before we go to my next guest. Because I know that there'll be some gentlemen watching the replay, and I don't know what's going on with our broadcast, because I'm getting messages everywhere that folks are saying they don't see it there. And it's there. I'm looking at a live thing right here, but folks are saying it's not showing up. So I apologize. I can't. I mean, I don't have any control over, but I hate that because I really wanted folks to see this live. That's that's one. Number two, for the men who may be watching this replay. And again, if you follow my channel and you follow this this broadcast, you know, I'm not a man basher. I'm team bruh. Okay. And there are women who possess these traits as well. And you heard Dr. Jordan refer to that earlier, right? So I don't want anybody putting this in the comments once this is on YouTube. You're doing another show.
Let me say this. I think men are, in general, I think men are absolutely one of the best things, Black men, and nothing against others. But when I tell you God put his foot down when he made Black men, he put his foot all up in that and stirred around when he made Black men.
He made them on Saturday. That's why he had to rest on Sunday.
Huh? That's why he had to rest on Sunday. I'm just saying. But the problem is for me, and this, if I'm sorry if men take it as a bash, because that's not what it's intended to be when I say this. Mm-hmm. The problem is when one brother does something wrong, his brothers don't snatch him back and fix it. Sisters, if I did something wrong, Camilla snatched me in a minute and be like, sis, did you really think about that? Mm-hmm. You know, and that's the difference between sisters and brothers. And I'll say some. Yeah. Some, but I'm just saying, you know, real, and that's what I see. Now, I could be wrong because of course men do things different behind closed doors, but I see women, some, and I'm gonna put a higher percentage on that some, even correct other women out in public. Like, no, come on, sis, let's not act like that. Sis, come on, let's just go home. You know, but I don't see a lot of men doing any corrective action. And that's where stuff just continues to perpetuate. It's not a bash on men. It's just something that I've seen with my own two eyes. And I think if men did more corrective action, we might have less of some of these issues in the home front because they know that their brother is going to check them. That's just my 2 cents, my outside eyes looking in.
I think where we see it persist is where there has been no accountability. Because exactly. I just had this conversation, like I said, with a man over the weekend about one of his family members, and I said, until you're willing to tell him the truth, you're just as bad as he is. You're just as bad. So if it's not adding up, and we're having this conversation, and you're saying that's cruel, that's, you know, that's manipulative, that's abusive, Okay, so when are you going to say that to him? Since you all are family members. And so again, I think it's the quality of individuals, it's the maturity of individuals that are willing to, like I said, say what needs to be said, call a spade in the moment, instead of waiting until, oh yeah, I always thought something was kind of strange. Really? Thanks for saying that now, 20, 30, 50 years after the fact. So I said, I think it has to do with the quality and the maturity of individuals. So I'm going to turn it over to Camille, but I had to say that because I know sometimes I get the pushback from the guys, and I'm like, hey, if this is not your flavor Kool-Aid, spit it out, get another glass, but we're going to tell the truth. And this is a safe space for people to tell their truth. And these are things that have actually happened to people by me. I have the fellas come on. If you all want to bring me some narcissist stories, I'm ready for it. Because that's why I put it on my page. I didn't make this invitation just within my group, which is primarily for women. I put it on my public page. So if there was anybody, okay, I said, lottie dottie, everybody, whoever has a story, please come share. And these are the ones who stepped up with bravery and courage to do so. So Miss Camille, the lowest point, take us to the lowest point, and then what caused you to leave, or how the relationship ended.
Well, there were several low points. Like I said, until I understood exactly what narcissism was, I had to accept that the narcissistic behavior that I experienced started as a child, in my upbringing, and certain family members, and to understand now that there is a spiritual narcissism. It wasn't anything along the lines of quoting scriptures to justify behavior or excuse behavior. It was more or less of you can't do this because you're a preacher's kid. You know, you have to conduct yourself in a certain way because you're a preacher's kid. You have to act a certain way. You can't be everywhere doing everything with everybody because you're a preacher's kid. And so I honestly felt like that stunted not only my ability to be able to express myself, because the few times that we were allowed as children to express ourselves, we were not heard. There was always a justification behind what it was that we were saying, and none of their reasoning lined up with the real reason of what we were discussing with them. But there was so much about, even to the point where I couldn't talk to, or I wasn't supposed to talk to other young men in the church, because the assumption was that I was one of the fast girls. I was loose. I was going to end up pregnant before I graduated high school. All these things that stirred up within my home before I even got out into the world to have somebody else look at me and judge me. People who are supposed to be the ones who are forming and maturing my mind and teaching me about my self-worth, my self-esteem. These are the people that are tearing me down and using religion or whatever to justify that. It like Tiffany, my self-esteem was very low. Like I remember my grandmother at one point saying, I had sang at the children's concert, and somebody came up in front of her and complimented me on how well I did. And I remember my grandmother saying, well, don't take their compliment too heavy, because they'll say that you did a good job, but they'll turn around and they'll tell somebody else that they did a better job. And frankly, I didn't think you did the best job either. I felt like so-and-so who sang the solo before you, I felt like she did a better job. And I would be like, so for the longest time, because of that, I didn't know how to take compliments from people.
Lord.
Because I didn't know if the people that were giving it to me were genuine with their words when they said it, because of what was instilled in me as a child. So
or you're supposed to be humble. You don't want to
exactly,
right? Because you're supposed to be humble.
And I think that that's what they were trying to teach us,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't agree with the technique that they use to do it. And so the lowest point at that stage was when my father left. My father left when I was 15. And it was completely unexpected. For the longest time, my family would sit down for after school specials and TV specials, and we're watching things about children who are on drugs now or who ran away because the home was broken. And during commercials, they would mute the TV and we would dissect, the meaning of whatever happened in that particular scene and what they did wrong and what they could have did or what they should have did. And I remember one of those series that we were watching, and my father said, "You all don't ever have to worry about that with me and your mom, because me and your mom are never breaking up, never divorcing."
Oh.
And as a kid, I hung on to that. So I'm thinking, my family is pretty dope, because while I know friends of mine and peers and schoolmates whose, families, even my best friend at the time, who lived in a one-parent home, I'm like, I don't have to worry about that because my parents ain't never gonna break up. So color me surprised when we sitting down one day and my mother was out of town on a musical workshop, and my father had just returned from in town, and we were staying at my grandmother's, and my sisters and I were at the house, and he said, "I want to let you all know that I'm moving to Florida." And when my father spoke as we always thought that meant us.
Right.
He never said we are doing anything. Whenever he said that meant all of us under his guidance. But he said, "No, I'm leaving." And what I didn't realize at that time, but I found out later, was that the discussion amongst his mother and his sister was that in him leaving, that I was the one that had been chosen or designated to go because I was the one who needed the most guidance out of the three of my sisters. Natasha was going to college and Teresa was still too young, and everybody knew she wasn't gonna leave my mom. So since I'm the one that they were so worried about, I'm the one that's going to go to Florida. So they left it up to me without leaving it up to me. But that was a really tough thing to go through because I never saw it coming. I never saw any type of, you know how when you can see things that are leading up to.
Right. So no signs or anything.
I never saw that. Never
They
saw
probably
that.
made sure that you didn't. They probably.
And it's possible that they did, but even still, like I remember seeing my parents argue.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember them getting to the point where they were arguing so tough that one was considering leaving the other.
Right.
So fast forward to when I met my ex-husband. I was actually dating somebody that we were all friends with.
Mm-hmm.
And he just became a really good friend for a year. And during this year, like I had my daughter, I was 19 when I gave birth, and my family made me feel, some of my family members, I won't say my family, some of my family members made me feel so ashamed by having her. And that was the first time that I considered taking my life, when I was pregnant with her, because I felt like every negative thing that was imparted on my life, I was bringing to fruition by having this baby. But I never was ashamed of being pregnant per se.
Mm-hmm.
I was excited at the fact that I finally have something now that I can give love to that will not reject me.
Mm-hmm.
I felt rejected by my family because I was never understood. I felt rejected by them because I was always called sensitive, and I had a soft heart, and just all this crazy stuff that I didn't even realize then was me being an empath. I didn't know that that's what I was, but that's what they identified me as. And so he had been around my daughter during that year of our friendship and everything, and then somehow it just evolved into a relationship. And one of the reasons, I married him for 2 reasons, and none of them really had to do with the fact that I loved him.
So what were the 2 reasons?
She said, I married him because and the unhealed part of me that still needed and missed my father, I found in him. But I also married him because I remember when I had my daughter, and even though things didn't go the way that I expected them to go, I still had a desire and a hope to be married. And I remember my grandmother telling me, you'll never be married because no man wants to raise another man's child. And I was just like, oh, I fucked up. Like, I felt like I destroyed my dream for being in a committed relationship like the one I had seen my parents in before it fell apart. So when this man came along, he acted like my dad. He reminded me of my dad, and he wants to marry me. I was like, I won. I felt like I won. I'm good. There were things in the relationship leading up to the marriage that let me know that I should not have married him.
Okay, the red flags you ignored.
Right. But because, again, I have these things in my heart and in my head, I wasn't strong enough at that age to be able to say, no, this is not for me.
No, because it's a big payoff. Like
this was a big payoff.
It's like, I'll endure this, especially since I'm lucky to even have this, right? So I'm not gonna blow it.
I didn't want to test the waters. Right. I didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't.
Be humble.
Yes. Right? Yes. Be grateful that somebody wants your ass. That's really what I thought. That's really what I felt. That's really what I felt.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. I need you to take us to the worst part, though. I hate to rush because you it's talking good, but I don't want to, like I said, lose folks. Folks are trying to find us, but I'm for some other people. But take us to that worst. So he gave you the promise of a future that you didn't think you had. He embodied some of the traits of your father. So you're like, okay, this is good for me, right? Yeah. And so it turned, and how bad did it get?
I think one of the worst parts was when we were getting towards the end of our marriage. And I had just decided I can't do this anymore. I was waking up drinking. I would throw parties just so I could drink. I didn't want to be present in the reality of, like Tiffany said, I don't remember, it wasn't a thing where I was throwing up when I saw him or saw his car, but when I heard him breathe, it just agitated my spirit just to hear him breathe. It bothered me to hear him walking across the floor of where we lived. It agitated me when I heard the alarm go off, went to let me know he was home. Like, it just seemed like I had peace when he was gone. And then when I knew he was on his way, I just was so agitated. And he did things just like Tiffany's husband did, that he tried to stay out of the home all the time, so that when I finally, rehearsal became my out. And he knew that. And that was on the night that he was supposed to stay at home and watch the kids. And he would always find an excuse. Well, one night I was at Tiffany's house, and I know she's going to hate me for telling this story, but I got to tell her because it's the lowest story.
Oh, look at her face. She's like, what story is this?
Tiffany.
Ooh, buckle your seatbelt.
Tiffany had gone.
I'm going to look away.
I ought to be glad that I'm not wearing prison orange because of this story.
Oh, she knows the story. Okay, go
She
ahead.
knows the story. I am forever thankful to God for provision, because he always, I feel now like he always allows people to go through things before you so that they can guide you through them.
Yes, yes,
At the
yes.
time that Tiffany and I got really close, she had already gone through the majority of what I was heading into. And so her house became a refuge for me. And so one of the nights, she had a tattoo party, and my brothers were there, and we were all hanging out, and I was just living and having a good time and whatever. And I got a phone call, and it was like he fell asleep at the wheel. Somebody, one of the people who had come had fallen asleep at the wheel. So I'm running down the stairs to go check on him, and I fell.
Uh-oh.
I didn't realize at the time how bad the fall was, but I just knew that I couldn't walk. And so Tiffany put me on, I crawled to the couch, and Tiffany gave me some pain pills, and they just barely took the edge off. Like, I am still in excruciating pain. And the next day I called, I don't know if Mama called.
Next day she thinks she's gonna drive home. Like, both of her legs look like she's got lymphedema. They're like this big. She thinks she's gonna drive home. So she's got the van. So she calls him to tell him that she can't drive. Her legs are swollen. And he's telling her, well, figure it out. You can drive home. Just, wrap them up. And I'm like, she cannot walk. Her legs, she can't even put her feet back in her shoes. And he's trying to tell her how she can work it out and she can figure it out. And I'm like, if you don't get in a car or have somebody come bring you to her, because even if you come get her, her van is still going to be here. And he was talking about how he had something to do. And by the time I got through cussing him out, he had somebody bring him to come pick her up.
Well, actually, no, he didn't come. What happened was, you were going to drive my car. Mama and Dad were going to drive their car. And all of y'all were going to drive out to my house. And then you were going to ride back with them. And I was like, nope, that's too much. I'll figure it out. So Tiffany gave me crutches. She had crutches at the house. I am hobbling down her stairs. And everybody's like, are you sure you're okay, Camille? Are you sure you're okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine. That survivor complex. Because the entire marriage, I didn't have anybody to really rely on. I did not have my husband. My husband was not my protector. My husband was not my support. He was not that. He was a husband in name only.
So
I'm convincing them, I'm like,
did it change like right after you all got married? Did it take a while? Because you're saying, okay, I'm seeing him as my father, like this dependable person, right? And then now you're saying he was a husband in name only.
I want to say it changed. I want to say it changed after we started dating, because as a friend, he was always the one that I could depend on. He was always the one that I could call. And that was one of the reasons that I fell in love with him, because I saw it not just the way that he did it with me, but he did it with everybody in our circle. If somebody needed, we knew we could go to him. So I'm convincing them that, because they are like, no, Camille, we're not going to let you go. And I'm convincing them I could drive home. I'm like, I got it. And I was driving. Every time my foot had to touch that accelerator pedal, I screamed, because I was in so much pain. Every time I had to brake, every time I had to accelerate, I would scream. I did not know then that I had refractured a fracture. So I fractured my right. I had broken my left. They hard cast my left. They soft cast my right. And he was just like, to be honest, I told him, I said, you know what? I don't even need you to come back for me. I need you to come back to help the kids get to school. I need you to help them, be cook or do whatever. Because we were living in a townhome at the time. I had to go up and down the stairs. My youngest at the time was, I think, 3 or 4. And he said, real talk, you said you wanted to be by yourself. You said you didn't want to be married to me anymore. So here it is. Handle it.
Wow.
And that was the lowest, because I never thought that you would put your kids down. Like at this point, fuck me. I don't care what your feelings are about me. You wouldn't come back to help your children.
Ooh.
And yeah.
Too much.
Yeah.
So Beverly, the worst, the bottom. Where'd you hit the wall, and what made you decide to leave and say, I've had enough, or how did it end?
Well, let me just, I know in the interest of time, I don't want to, I guess I had a healthy childhood, so mine wasn't as, determined as a child. But I'm on the tail end of the baby boomers. So I'm 58 years old, and I'm a baby boomer. So I like when young lady talked about baby, being a child of a boomer. So I guess I'm the oldest one on the panel.
You got just a few years. You only got me by a few years.
Yeah, I'm on the tail end of the baby boomers. But I guess my lowest point, and I'm gonna try not to, it was at my 55th birthday party. Anybody that knows me, I have a big birthday bash every 5 years, not every year. Ever since I was 25 years old, I have a big bash every 5 years.
So with the mostest.
But yeah, so I had my 55th bash. I planned it out, and I was all excited. I had like 150 people on my guest list or whatever. And again, I talked about the guy that I was with in a relationship, not married. I had been married twice, divorced twice. This, like I said, that's why I thought that this guy, who was my childhood sweetheart, I thought that this was it. This is, we came back full circle. We're both divorced twice. We both had so much in common. We were both athletes in high school. We were both in the sorority, fraternity. So we had a lot in common. And I'm just like, Dad, and my girlfriend teases me to this day and says, you used to say he was your soulmate, really? I did. I thought, I'm like, oh, this is, whatever. So, but it took some time for me to realize that he wasn't my soulmate. And so my 55th birthday party, I planned it. I wanted to, do it big. And I had just lost my brother. My oldest brother passed away 2018. And so I started planning toward the end of that year. I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it up. And he basically, by this time, I knew that what I was dealing with. It took me some time to find out that I was dealing with a narcissist. I found out maybe about 2 or 3 years prior to that, but I was still in the process of trying to accept it, trying to understand it. So I was still in the relationship. I did a lot of, like Dr. Kim, I can write a book on narcissism because I've done a lot of, once I found out about the word and what it meant, because I was in a therapy session. And, I actually went to therapy for one reason, and it was something dealing with my baby girl. But it was too painful for me to talk about in therapy. So I was like, you know what? I can't talk about that right now, but I got some stuff going on with me. I need some help with my relationship, and I can't identify what it was at that time. Again, that was like 2 or 3 years before my 55th, and maybe 2 years. And the therapist was like, I started saying naming some stuff, and he was like, is it narcissism? That's the first time that was brought to my attention. And I was like, what is that? He explained it to me, somebody with an exaggerated opinion of themselves, and somebody who, thrives on making you feel bad or put you down or whatever. And from that point, I took it and ran with it. Started doing all kind of research, looking it up every time I saw narcissism. So Dr. Kim, it is new, but it's not, because I have read everything about it. I've read about narcissism with children, with parents, everything. So I became immersed with it and just kind of obsessed with it because I was really in denial, because I kept, like, wow, is this person a narcissist? Is he, I've been in love with this guy Like I said, we about 8 years together. And, you know, there was a lot of red flags in the beginning of the relationship. Of course, when you reflect and think back, there was some red flags in the beginning, but then, you know, but I'm just like, dang, when I'm looking at all of these characteristics, like, oh,
To see it in writing, you're like,
yeah, I'm like, damn, wow.
somebody else has done this.
Yeah,
So, that was just
you know,
him being weird or whatever.
so that was my, you know, so once I became immersed with it, and you know, but the thing is, my life was still going. I had a highly stressful job as a school administrator. I got 2 daughters that I'm raising, trying to, you know, do what I can for them. So I think I went back to school somewhere up in there to get my certificate for superintendent. So I think a lot of the time was spent like just doing me. So I didn't really take a lot of time to really focus on a relationship. But on top of that, whenever I did try to have a conversation with him, you know, there were several times I would be like, okay, something ain't right. You know, can we talk? Can we talk? But every time I would try to have a heart-to-heart conversation, the narcissist would emerge like, yeah, you know, you know, flip the script. That was the favorite thing that they would do, that he would do. Next thing I know, I'm defending myself on something like, damn, I just want to have a conversation and try to work out what's going on between us.
When you say, so I want you to don't go too fast. I know you're trying to summarize, but don't go too fast. When you say flip the script, what do you mean by that?
Is that gaslighting? I think gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's another term. So I want you to make it real simple for the people out there. So when you flip the script, what happened?
I'm coming to you like sincerely from the heart. Hey, some things are not going the way it used to be. Something's not right with the relationship. We need to talk. And the red flag that I ignored early in the relationship, the first time I said those 4 words to him, you know, it was like, you know, it was early and I felt like we needed to talk. And I said, we need to talk. And boy, he blew up. He blew up and was like, wow, what we need to talk about, blah, 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 blah. And I just like, wow, really? Did you that upset? Because I want to have a heart-to-heart conversation. So I never got a chance to really have a heart-to-heart conversation, because every time I tried, just gentle. I didn't come hard like, can we talk?
I'm sure you tried different ways, and
I tried different ways.
The response was way
every time.
Yeah,
every time
what was going on.
Every time it was like, you know, well, you did this and you don't, blah, blah, blah. And next thing I know, we're in an argument.
So
and
his
favorite thing was, I ain't trying to argue with you. I ain't trying to argue with you. I'm just trying to have a conversation. What? So, and I would always wind up defending myself on something else that had totally nothing to do with what I'm trying to talk to you about.
So now he's the victim.
And so, you know, I got to a point where, damn, okay, well, I ain't gonna talk about nothing. So, you know, I kept going with life. I kept going, I'm working, I'm doing this, I'm dealing with my daughters, whatever. And just going through the motions.
Mm-hmm.
And then like the lowest point, like I said, was my party, because when I decided I wanted to have my 55th party, I started planning and I told him about it. Hey, I'm gonna have my party or whatever. He told me point blank, I'm not coming. I'm not gonna be there. I was like, well, and I knew every year around my birthday, he goes to Vegas, and I knew that, and it was no big deal. Sometimes he wouldn't be here for my birthday because he always goes to Vegas for March Madness. But I've given you enough time. You know, this was in November when I started planning. Mm-hmm. But what I found out is his ass had already booked his flight to Vegas back in July. And I'm just like, well, damn, you booked your flight and you knew that you was gonna be gone on my birthday. You didn't even like think about it and say, well, are you gonna have your party or what? You know what I'm saying? Just when you think about hindsight. So the time came for my party. It was coming up to the party. He basically told me, I'm not gonna be there. And I'm like, but you're gonna be in Vegas for a whole week before my party. You're not gonna try to come back and just be there with me? He told me no. So my girlfriends, they kept telling me, he just lying. He gonna surprise you. He gonna surprise you. But me knowing him in the back of my head, I'm like,
No, he meant it.
he don't do surprises. But I kept kind of hanging on to it, like maybe so, maybe so.
Yeah,
Kept
to the
hanging
very
on.
end. To the very end.
Yep, and he went to Vegas. I actually took him to the airport that Sunday. He was in Vegas for a whole week, hanging out with a bunch of hard leg ass men. And I thought if you was there for a whole week, you could have come back on Saturday so you could be here with me. And he didn't. And I guess that was when I had the final realization of, well, damn, I don't mean shit to this dude, because you couldn't even make a sacrifice. And mind you, he did it at my 50th. My 50th was 5 years earlier, and I didn't even ask him. This time he offered. He came back early. So I'm just like, well, what the hell changed from then to now? What? So, but anyway, the lowest point was the night of my party. I mean, I had it going on, girl. I had my outfit made.
You've been there.
I rented a hall. I had like over 150 people there to celebrate me. And his mom and his dad was there, mind you. And we were not married. So it hit me that night because I kept holding on to the hope that my girlfriends knew what they was talking about.
Looking at the door. I know he did.
He gonna
I mean, we were too. We was like, maybe he
gonna surprise you. He gonna surprise you. And it hit me that night after around 8 o'clock came, party was going, people was coming in, the music was flowing, I was, and it hit me that night. I was like, damn, he's not coming or whatever. So that was it. Kind of like the lowest point for me. Like I said, I knew about the narcissism and everything, but that was it right there. I'm like, okay, so he just really didn't give a damn about me. And the reality was, if you know anything about a narcissist, he didn't want to be there because he knew that a lot of people were going to be there that was loving on me. People were going to be all over me and this and that or whatever, but he didn't want to be there to because he was the narcissist, He wasn't going to be getting the spotlight. Yep. But, so from that point, that was March. We were kind of downhill. After that, when he came home, he had the audacity to have an attitude with me. Like I had done something wrong. Like, he came home and gave me the silent treatment after he came back. What? So by that time, I had gotten accustomed to the silent treatment. And so I would give it back because I'm like, I ain't did nothing. You the one that, stood me up or whatever, wasn't there for me or with me when I felt like you should have been. So it was just downhill from that point on. That was March. April, he started sleeping in the basement. We were like separate bedrooms or whatever, still communicating. I think he was still trying to push and trying to make things right. I think he wound up buying me a computer for my birthday or something, but it was just downhill. This is several different things. I can't go into detail, but I had a conversation with him around April, into April, May, maybe. And I just asked him point blank. I said, hey, what's going on with us? I said, what's your plan for me? And I'm like, I just turned 55 years old. He was a year older than me. So he was 56. I was like, well, what are your plans? I said, do you plan on, ever making me your wife or anything? Or I said, I'm 55. I said, I don't want to be your girlfriend for 20.
Right, be the special friend in the obituary.
Yes. I was like, what's up with that? I said, what's your plans? And he basically told me, no, that wasn't part of my plan. I wasn't planning on doing that. Whoa. I'm like, you mean tell me I done spent all this damn time, all these years with you waiting and whatever, and but okay, hurt my little feelings. But after that was it. So, like I said, the communication was bad. It was kind of downhill ever since the the party situation. I had a great time at my party though, by the way, after I got past that, but that was a really sad feeling,
Absolutely, because you're like, certainly you wouldn't do that. Yes,
And
I'm gonna do that too.
and everybody was asking me, where's, where's, I'm like in Vegas, and they like, in Vegas? What? Yeah, okay. But anyway, the party was a blast. We had a wonderful time, beautiful, beautiful. But after he told me that, no, I didn't have no intentions or whatever, that was around May. So like maybe about a day or two after we had that conversation, I just decided, hey, because I had been trying, I drew up a contract.
A contract.
I'm a writer. I'm a journalist by heart. I'm like, so can we try to communicate better? I drew up a little contract. I was like, can we just try to talk more and communicate and be more respectful, in a relationship? It was simple stuff, simple stuff. I wasn't asking you to do nothing, out of the ordinary for a healthy relationship. But he looked at the papers, I wrote it out and everything. And my ship, Kim, because I ran it by her, is that a lot? And she was like, no. He told me, no, I can't sign it. So all of this was all happening right around in the same time. And just finally, one day I just said, you know what? I came down, I was around here in this basement, and I just told him, I said, hey, you know what? I said, this relationship has run its course.
Boom.
I said, yeah, I need you to go. I need you, again, my house, whoever, one of the other young ladies was like, yeah, it's run its course and I need you out by June 1st. That's what I basically told him that. And he was, okay, whatever. He had just recently hit the lottery. He had about $8,000 or something. So he had money to go ahead and move out. And we coexisted in the house for the remainder of the time.
That's so hard.
Upstairs, downstairs, and it didn't get volatile or anything like that.
No, that sounds like, let me finish this program. You like, right. You got till June 1st. So we know where this is, but still, you two ships passing in the night. You trying to walking on eggshells. Oh my God! And he left June 1st, and I was hurt. And I remember, I never forget, he gave me this hug after he had packed up all this stuff, and he came back in. Seriously, gave me this hug like he was just hurt, like he hugged me like. And I was just like, okay. And it was hurtful. I felt empty. I felt empty. And I remember a couple of nights after that praying, God, take away this pain from me or whatever. And I was also fearful of my finances because, of course, if you with somebody for 8 years, you done develop some bills. I had a car note, I had this, I had that. He was contributing to the household, but now he's gone. So, and I remember praying like, God, I hope I can do this. Can I do this by myself? But I had to remember who I was. I had to remember my worth, myself. Listen. I deserve better than this. I deserve to be treated better. I've sat back and just gone through the motions all of these years in this relationship because I was, dealing with life and just not really focusing like that. And just you get accustomed to somebody and something or whatever. I was like, I deserve so much better. And I just remember praying like, Lord, can I do this financially by myself? And I remember God spoke to me and told me, you're going to be okay. And when I tell you that God kept his word, and ever since that man been out, I done refurnished my whole home. Oh, wait, don't go there yet. Okay. Let's press pause. But let's press pause. But look, because I want to draw these parallels. So you already found the parallel with you and Tiff's story, right? When you finally have that deadline, right? And then how you have to walk that plank, that final piece where you're like, okay, I got to walk this out. I've made the decision, but I'm getting control over the situation, right? I finally say I've had my Fannie Lou Hamer moment. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I ain't gonna do it. I ain't gonna be sick no more. I'm not walking on eggshells. I'm not gonna be embarrassed. I'm not gonna be felt like second place. but I want to draw these parallels that might not be.
Excuse me, Kim, real quick. I know we over time and I'm okay with that. It's not bothering me at all. Beverly, I wanted to say I had that gaslighting, man, they real good for that. And let me tell you, when I talk to mine, which is very my ex, which is not very often, he still tries to gaslight. Like that, I think honestly, they don't even realize that they're doing it.
No.
Like I think it's such a part of the communication method in which they speak, because it would be, hey, those 4 words, can we talk? They really don't want to hear that. And I'd be like, hey, can we talk about, and I could do the same thing, hey, can we talk about, A, B, C, D? And next thing I know, I'm apologizing and crying because I didn't do such and such. And I'm so sorry. And it's amazing because you don't even realize that you have allowed them to flip that script on you so much. So, honey, I understand that whole gaslighting thing. It was unbelievable.
Yes.
And it took so long for me I didn't even know there was a word for it until, because I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what I was experiencing. I kept thinking, what's happening here? Because then I would go back later when I'd be by myself and realizing, well, wait, we didn't even talk about what I wanted to talk about.
That's the point. That's
right. And so now I'm feeling bad because I didn't discuss what I wanted to talk about. Yeah. Now I feel bad about something that I probably should have never felt bad, like everything. So you want to, and I like to say, I've always had low self-esteem, always. And that, yes, that's a whole nother conversation. And now,
I had it. I didn't have low self-esteem.
And so now
I did.
If I thought I had built it up a little bit, he'd go all the way back down here again. I'm like, what the world? Yeah. So I didn't mean to cut you off, Kim. I just wanted her to know.
No, I'm glad.
I know exactly what she's talking about.
Absolutely. And that's what I was trying to get her to describe that too, because like I said, a lot of times we use these terms and folks are like, but what did that really look like? What did that really sound like? Because I do want somebody to watch this, or if they share it, to say, oh my God, so I'm experiencing that, or I did experience that. So when I hear it again, I know that that's a red flag. I know that it's not something that I'm doing or not doing, or something that I'm saying wrong, or I'm picking the wrong time. This person has no good intentions towards me, has no respect at all for my feelings or my presence.
And most of the time, so most of us know, like you listed all those different types of narcissists, and most of them don't even realize that they are. And the reason they're not diagnosed, Kim, let me put on my mental health head real quick. Most of the reason they're not diagnosed is because they don't see anything wrong with what they're doing. So therefore, they're never going to go to a clinician to be properly diagnosed.
No.
So, because you can't get diagnosed with depression unless you go to a clinician and they go through the proper steps, with the exception of very few mental illnesses, which can be diagnosed through some medical methods. All of them are diagnosed by you talking to a clinician and they asking you certain questions for them to get what they need to get. A narcissist has to say, there's something wrong with what I'm doing. Exactly. Let me go talk to somebody. But a narcissist will never say that because they see absolutely nothing wrong with what they're doing.
Exactly.
The one narcissist that we all know, and I mean, like literally the whole world knows, is that former president whose name I try every bit not to say.
Don't say it.
A 45. That's about as respectful as I could be with his name. Okay. He is a classic example of a malignant narcissist. Classic. So if anybody ever wants to say, well, what does that look like? You take his personality trait and then you just start bringing it down some to you see, because he is a classic example of a DSM-5 malignant narcissist, because the things that he does is definitely all about him and in danger to others. Okay. So just if you ever see, and his level of gaslighting is unbelievable. Like you just have to look at it. So,
Yep.
so we need to say that. So that's my mental health thing, right? The reason why it's vague, is minimally diagnosed, is because
they would never admit
one
it.
person is gonna say,
They're not gonna
"Oh
admit
yeah, I realize I'm harming other people, and I
Yeah.
think I'm the best thing since sliced bread, and all of that. And so I'm gonna go to the doctor because I shouldn't feel like that." Nobody.
No.
So that's why it's not diagnosed like depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, anxiety, and things like that. And people who have been victimized by persons with the narcissistic personality disorder, they generally live with high cases of depression, anxiety, PTSD, because baby, like those are some illnesses that are results of living with people who have narcissistic personality disorder. Because I already have my issues, but when I tell you my PTSD is bad, it's horrible.
Yeah. I think I have it too. I had it as well, but you know, the healing, I just can say that healing journey that I was on, I had a therapist, I still have the therapist too, and that has walked me through and talked me through the healing. My
therapist is phenomenal. So I had to I got a new one, and I absolutely love her because she talks to me like a friend on the street. Because sometimes I'll go in and talk to her, and she'll be like, "We're not fucking talking about that. We're gonna talk about this." I'm like, "Did you just say that to me?" But that's what I need. So it's perfect for me. But I never realized how much my ex was still in my head after 15 years of separation and divorce, until, you know, like dealing with her. And because there was something I had said to her some years ago. It probably was at this point still probably only like 12 or 13 years, but it didn't matter. We had been apart just that long. And something I said to her, and I must have said like, "Well, I didn't realize that something about him." And she said, "Why do you still care about what he thinks?" And I didn't realize that I had even, and so we worked on trying to negate his why he was in my head still after all these years. And I didn't even know that he still had that. So the healing process is still a long process. Because it just takes a while. Like I went almost 4 years without speaking to him. Because not only is
enough.
Like
I said, and it still wasn't enough.
Well, it was perfect. It was the perfect amount of time, because then when I spoke to him, I was no longer angry.
Okay, well, praise.
But because every time we would speak, like he works for an airlines, and so I used to have flight benefits, but then he found out I was dating, so he wanted to take my benefits away.
Of course.
Because if I'm dating somebody, that means I'm doing other things with somebody. But dude, you thought I wasn't dating anybody all these years that we've been apart? What?
No,
I'm trying
you never
to
find anybody better than him.
But you know, that meant I was doing things with other people, and so he couldn't come and ask me for those things.
Cut you off,
You know, it's like that kind of stuff. It's like that's the level of narcissism that he has. But he's also a manipulative narcissism, because when my son was in school, he signed all the paperwork, and so I had to stay kind of in contact, because if I didn't, then he wouldn't pay for school. Like, that's like how I had to, my mother kept saying, "Well, I don't know why you're still doing this." I said, "Because I need that boy to graduate."
Okay.
Right.
It's a lot of things. And that's what I said. That's what I was trying to make that parallel between Beverly and Camille. And then like I said, we're going to talk about the healing, which you all are moving into, which is good. But why people stay. And I've had some folks, and you can tell when somebody asks questions like that, you've never experienced any type of abuse, because people are like, "Well, why don't you just leave? You know, you were working, she was working. Okay, so why don't you just leave?" And so what I saw, the parallel you and Camille's story, is this notion of shame, right? So her saying, "I was lucky to have somebody who wanted to take me on," right? as a wife, they said I would never get married. I got this child out of wedlock. You saying I've been divorced twice.
Mhm.
Now I've invested all of this time. So
Mhm.
I'm wondering for you, was that a voice in the back of your head? Like, okay, I've already been there twice. I've invested this time. I don't want to experience that failure of another relationship or having to deal with another breakup. Was that any part of like your
Who
internal
was twice?
dialogue?
Who was twice divorced? Is that
You,
me? Right.
you, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know what? My
You,
yeah,
me, both
I
of
heard,
us.
right. I heard, I think, who said it? Camille, maybe. Well, my parents were married 46 years before my dad passed away. So absolutely, after 2 failed marriages, then like I said, I got with this guy. We came back full circle, and I honestly thought that this was it. This was it. But yeah, of course, yeah, I was embarrassed and ashamed of the fact that I had 2 failed marriages. Somebody I think said that the guy reminded them of their dad. This guy reminded me of my father, and I used to tell him all the time, "Oh my God, you have some of the same ways like my dad." Both were Taurus the bull, Taurus. He had a lot of ways like my dad, and that's why I kept saying we got to be meant to be together.
But then he had a lot of ways that wasn't like your dad too.
Oh my God!
But you hang on to those. But I'm saying, but we do that when we're trying to justify why I'm here. So you look at these pros and cons, you know, and it's like, but
I even thought, was my dad a narcissist? Because damn, but I don't know. But
my dad is
Mr. Jordan.
Taurus the bull.
You said your daddy.
So
my
many
dad
things.
is. I mean, healthy is. Like, you know, so I mean, he is.
But,
so I get it. It's like with you, Beverly, my parents have been married 57 years.
So, yeah,
they'll be hitting 58 in December.
I know. And your mama's gonna be on my show next week to talk about all of that. She's gonna come on the show to talk about all of that. But
my grandparents were married 56 years before my grandmother passed away. So when this started boiling over and Cornelius and I, I didn't mean to say his name, but oh well, were breaking apart. My grandfather was like, "We don't have divorce in our family," and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, the guilt started hitting me like, oh my God, we supposed to do? And then my mother was like, well, you know, the first 10, 12 years of the marriage is all about learning each other. And, you know, your father and I, it took us a while. Like everybody was throwing all this guilt on me. And I was like, but y'all don't understand what I'm living with. Like, y'all don't understand, because I'm not coming outside my marital home to tell you what's happening. So you don't understand. Like, you just don't understand. So I still wasn't telling them what was happening. Like, nobody knew about me throwing up in the garbage can. Like, nobody knew about any of that stuff. Nobody knew about nobody knew that my body was shutting down until I went to the hospital, and the doctors are talking to my mom and dad, because I'm in the hospital, and they're talking to my parents about what's going on with my body. And the doctor is telling her body is shutting down because something mental is happening to her body to cause this shutdown. There's nothing physically wrong with her.
Oh.
And so now my mother is sitting there like, well, what's going on? What's causing all of this? And I was like, I cannot go back home. Now she's understanding. Like, now here we are. Let's fast forward 17 years later, and every now and then something will come up, and I'll tell her, and she's like, why didn't you tell us you were going through that? Because it was happening in my home. I didn't think I was supposed to. Like me telling her how I'm not working and I'm asking him to give me money for the groceries. He gives me $100 to feed 4 people for 3 weeks. Sorry, sir.
Financial abuse. Financial.
Oh yeah, I had it all. I had everything but physical.
And that's why you don't tell. And that's pretty much the
Beverly, you're talking about the silent treatment. Now I have behavioral health. I have behavioral health issues, right? So the last thing in the world is I need necessarily the silent treatment. And if I tell you, that doesn't really work for me, because my minions will run away with it and it sends me down a whole nother path, right? I tell you that, like up front, like, let's talk through things. And then you do the silent treatment for weeks at a time.
Ooh,
That's anguish.
it used to kill me. It used to kill me.
So, well, if I was my brain was normal, it probably wouldn't have. But because the way my brain functions and all the stuff I have going on, silent treatments don't work. Like if I just don't want to talk, that's one thing. But a silent treatment, because there's a problem, causes too much overthinking and my anxiety kicks in. So it didn't work. So that we're not talking, there's something we need to discuss, and you just decided to do the silent treatment because that's what really, like once I think we didn't talk for like 6 weeks. What? How do you live in a house with somebody and you don't speak for 6 whole weeks? And I don't mean like, oh, we're not going to talk about that issue. I mean, didn't speak, like not even a good
daily stuff. Wow.
Yeah. I don't think we've gone 6 weeks, but maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah, we went about 6 weeks, and I get it. We work nights. I work days. He worked nights. Like that, you gonna have that shift passing the night, but I could get up in the morning and tap him and say good morning, and he would not respond. Like that's that horrible mental anguish that I was living with. So
horrible feeling.
I'm so glad that 1, I'm not in that anymore. 2, that my therapist got me through those stages of healing, because as I mentioned, she helped me get through that. And because of that, I lost my last 60 pounds. So that brought my body back to a stage of healing. 3, my stages of healing allow me to understand what are good and acceptable relationship patterns, both for friendships and for intimate partners.
Yes.
Because what I also learned through all of those stages of healing is that I had made bad decisions for non-intimate partner relationships, because I started to see that I was attaching myself to people who had some of the same traits and qualities as my husband, because I too am an empath, but I'm so empathic, not just, oh, I care about you. My empathic side is so bad that like my therapist had to show me how to literally shut that off. That if I'm attached to you empathically, I can at many times feel your physical pain.
Yes, indeed. Yep.
So it's very difficult for me to be around people who have negative energy. And so, and not just people I know, like I can't even go into spaces with negative energy. Ooh. So because my empathic side can't handle that. Right. So I walk in a room and I'm like, there's too much negative energy here. I'm gonna go home. I don't care how far I could have driven like 2 hours and I'll walk in a room and I'm like, negative energy, deuces, Right. It's because my body can't manage that,
It's called protecting your peace.
Absolutely. But I didn't know what all of that was. And so therapy has brought me to a place of being able to identify what is good for me and what isn't. So it means I spend a lot of time at home because there's too much negative energy out there. But I'm grateful that I left that because it got me to the place where I am today.
Absolutely. Same. Absolutely.
That's a good place. You talked about levels. You talked about therapy being the catalyst for that. You talked about being alone, right? To process that. Sometimes we don't want to press pause and be still to do that.
But you have to.
Oh yeah. You're worth it. You're worth it. There's no way you can't, because if nothing else, you got to still the voices, right? The incoming. And
if you don't learn how to be alone, to learn how to know who you are, because I worry about people, male and female and non-binary, or however they fit on the scope of that spectrum, that are unable to be able to be by themselves, to know who they are,
Yeah.
Because people who jump from relationship to relationship, you know, they haven't had an opportunity to see what's going on. And if you keep going from person to person to person to person to person, who are you?
You're not gonna find
You
it.
know,
It
it
like
reminds
you said, and that's friends or like I said, intimate friends, because you like,
it reminds me
navigate
of
the world
Runaway
on my
Bride.
own, and you adding to it.
Yeah, it reminds me so much of the movie The Runaway Bride. Have you seen it?
Mm-hmm.
Been a while, yeah.
Yeah, and
Julia
you know,
Roberts.
she didn't know what kind of eggs she liked, right?
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you keep hopping from person to person to person, you're that person. You don't know what kind of eggs you like. But when you take the time to be alone with yourself, you will eventually learn what kind of eggs you like. And so that's
and be
what
okay with it and not be afraid to say
exactly. And you might not like eggs at all, right? But
Yeah.
this process has allowed me the opportunity to know what kind of eggs I like. Like you were talking about you and Camille talked about the your partners being like your dad. And I thought my husband was a lot like my dad, partly because he was Leo. So I just figured, oh, I can be with this Leo because my dad's a Leo. So I know how to manage. Mm-hmm. And then I dated a couple of Leos after that. And I have made a solemn vow that if a man stands to me and they tell me that their zodiac sign is a Leo, I'll just die. Because I'll never date another Leo again. Just period. And I've had my fair shake. 3 is enough, right?
That's interesting because my dad was a Taurus. This guy was a Taurus. The guy that I'm in a current, very healthy relationship now is a Taurus. And I'm still looking like, wow.
But other shoe to drop.
When is that going to happen?
Listen, I did 3. I'm good. I'm good. I figured the only Leo I need in my life is my dad. That's enough. That's it. I'm good.
That's it.
What I have learned is that I know my dad, what I'm starting to say is my dad, God bless him, I love him to death. I swear I do. So I'm gonna have to state it. I have to put that caveat out there, right? My dad is a fucking asshole. Like just he is.
There it
right?
is, ladies and gentlemen.
And I tell him this all the time, right? And when I was a kid, I couldn't say it that way. I used to tell him he was a jerk. And then as I got older, I've been able to just call him. I said, you're an asshole. Just you are. And what I've discovered is that component of my dad seems to be the aura that I put out, because I seem to always end up dating men that are assholes, right? Because I'm like, why is that, right? But that's the aura that I put out. So, but I'm okay with that. Now that I've realized that that's what I seem to attract, but now I have to deal with what kind I want to attract.
There you go. Still,
because everybody has something. So that's the part of my dad that I'm okay with attracting, because my dad's a good asshole. He's gonna make sure that I'm taken care of. He's gonna do all, he just got some tendencies, right?
And that's what we said at the beginning, that everydy's got something, right?
They got something.
Where you are on the spectrum. Okay,
absolutely.
It is 8:50.
Yeah,
Pause.
Right.
I'm out. Yeah.
And so I have to say, I don't know what else you all want to. I'm sorry.
I'm asking you. I'm trying to ask you.
I have to hop off because I have to be a clinical at 6 a.m. So I'm gonna say I love you all. Thank you so much for this time. I don't know what else you all are gonna talk about. I'm gonna miss it, so
you'll catch the last 10 minutes when you get a chance. But thank you.
All right, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Okay.
Same here. Same here.
So what I need for you to do in the 9 minutes that's remaining is talk about in 2 minutes or less.
Yeah.
The process of healing. And I'm passing the mic to Camille because she has sat so patiently in prayer and supplication. waiting for the mic to come back to her. What the healing process was? It therapy? Was it? Get in another relationship and seeing that, oh, wow, I've seen this before. What was that healing process like? And where are you now?
Well, clearly to me, I'm still healing. Not necessarily from my marriage. There are parts of that I can relive that don't faze me at all. Mm-hmm. And there are parts of it that it almost cripples me. because I haven't, it's not even about me not being over the relationship or being over him. It's just the fact of knowing who I am as a person and who I was to that person, and to have been mistreated to the extent that I have been. You know, I didn't get the opportunity to talk about gaslighting in my marriage, but at one point my ex-husband misspent funds, and instead of him owning up to his part in it, he came back and told me, well, you need to go and take your rings and go pawn them so we can figure this out. And
Wow.
the first part of that conversation, I was like, fuck you and fuck your idea, and I'm not doing that shit. But in the back of my mind, you know, you become so trained to thinking that maybe you are the problem, that I actually did go and take my wedding ring and my engagement ring, and it still wasn't enough. So I'm taking off jewelry I'm taking off diamond earrings and necklaces and tennis bracelets, everything I had on that either I had bought or he had bought. So, you know, there are things like that that I still cannot get past as far as my marriage goes. But the healing for me really came a few years after we had gotten divorced. Long story short of how, because I'm not even going to get into how it happened, but he came in and he attacked myself, my daughters, in front of my mother. And the first thing that I did was get a restraining order for myself. And I got a protective order for the children, so that it was designed where he could only see them under certain circumstances. When we took it in front of a judge, when it finally went up in front of a judge, a Black female judge sat on her post and told me that she couldn't believe that he had done what he did to me, because I had no physical signs of trauma, even though I have my mother there as a witness. I have pictures as proof. I have my, you know, and he got away with it.
Oh my God.
And she made us go to counseling. Like, for shits and giggles, she would make us go to counseling, and then we'd have to come back to her and report to her to tell her how the counseling had gone. And then she was like, I don't think you go back and come back and see me in another month. And so this went on for a period of time. And I ended up to the point where this is when I really recognized the anxiety that I had behind it. I got so anxious every time we had to go to counseling. Like headaches, sweating, sickness, the whole nine. And so I got up this particular day and I said, this is the last day that I'm doing this. I'm not coming back to another counseling session. And by this time now, he has calmed down. We haven't, in this counseling session, we have not addressed him attacking us. We have not addressed the reason behind it. We have not addressed
pink elephant in the room.
Right. We have not addressed the remorse or anything. It's, how are you feeling today? Have you all talked since the last time we've been together? How did that go? Camille, how do you feel about what he said? Kids, how do you feel? And I'm like, what is this shit? Like, this was when I did not believe in the justice system at this time. I did not believe in therapy at this time, because to me, it was complete bullshit. And this particular day, I had been quiet the entire counseling session because I didn't feel like we were making any progress. And this particular day, the kids had made a comment about something they felt was unfair about their dad. And I said, and I took like 2 seconds to defend him. And he thought that was like an olive branch where we were going to be cool with each other. But then I turned to him and I said, well, let me ask you a question. When have I ever disrespected you in our relationship? Never. You've been solid. You've been 100. When I tell you, I ran down a list of everything he had ever done to me from the moment we first had our first argument all the way up until this particular day. And I just unleashed it. My daughter, Kamari, my oldest, had to send her younger 2 siblings out the room because she felt like that was my opportunity to really give it, because I've been holding on to it for so long. And I let him have it. And I turned to that, when I was done, I turned to that counselor. I said, I am not coming back here, not another day. Write a letter today to this judge that I can take back that says that you don't think that this is beneficial for us at this time, because I'm not coming back. And he did. And I took it in front of the judge and she released it. And to be honest, I really have not spoken to him since then. And that had to be like 2015. And we've had graduations between, that time, between 2015 and now. We don't speak. And to me, it's better that way, because anytime I try to be peaceful, or I try to be the bigger person, or I try to let bygones be bygones, he finds some way to slip something in there. And I'm not going to continuously have you take me off my square.
No, you cannot.
I'm not going to continuously have you have control of me to the point that I'm stepping outside of my body and to have to deal with you. I can't do that. So we don't communicate.
And that's part of your healing, is making, like I said, making a decision, And especially, like I said, since you identified early on that this is something that you had already experienced, not being heard. And so here I am again. And so for you, like I said, take your power back and say, I don't have to worry about being heard, because I know you're not able to give that to me.
Exactly.
So I will not avail myself to that situation. And so that is an excellent way. And if you remember at the beginning, we talked about that there are certain narcissists. There's no easing out. There's some folks you just I cannot have any communication with you at all. No contact.
And as a result of that, I feel like as a defense mechanism for myself, that is one of the main reasons that I don't argue. I do not get into disagreements. I will state my position. I'll allow the person to state their position, and hopefully we can come to some sort of understanding. But the moment things start to flip to where either I feel my voice elevating or I feel like their voice is elevating, I immediately opt out, because I do not have that. There was so much physical and emotional and mental and sexual abuse in that marriage that I have no tolerance for it.
Defense
And
it's a defense mechanism.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So can I go quick, Dr. Kim? Because I'm about to be
we're at 8:59.
I gotta go too, because I got my chocolate drop waiting
Y'all
on me.
not gonna leave me here. Wait a minute, kept me here all night until I gotta go.
Wait, right, and the top the whole rip.
And then I gotta close it out by myself. Dr. Frazier, I see your hand up, but I have to take Dr. Jordan. And then,
let me end it. Let me just, because one of the things you said, how would you end?
Yes.
I'm gonna end something that I learned, praying and trusting God. That was very helpful during that time while I was healing alone by myself. I grew closer to God. I had a Bible app that I was, using, and I would go in, and every morning before I even got out of bed, I would, read different scriptures that were related. It was a certain categories that you can select in the app. And I was, so I grew very close, much closer to God, which was very instrumental. The other thing that was extremely important and that helped me was journaling. I am a journalist. My undergraduate degree is in journalism. I'm a writer. I love writing, it's my passion. But I'm telling you, this was what helped me a lot. It's called Reclaim Piece by Piece. Right here, this was my journal, my piece, P-I-E-C-E by piece. And honey, I would journal every morning and every night. And it's awesome because it would give you prompts every morning and every night, your thoughts. It was really simple stuff, but it was so good because I stuck to it. And when I got to a certain point and I can go back and look at it, I like to look at it now, and you can just see how I have grown through my healing process.
Oh, yeah, when you look back.
This was huge right here. And then once I got with that one, I moved into Crowned, which was
I remember that one.
That was similar. They give you these little prompts, and I had to make a point of pushing myself to do that. That was big for me. That was big. And then the most important part is I would say is to know your worth, learn your worth, because you have to learn you know, who you are, and you have to know and understand that you are worthy of much better, you know,
Being treated well.
your worth, what you are worth, you know. So it was a long, and I'm still in the healing process. Even now, as I'm in a relationship that's healthy, I still have some remnants of the PTSD. You know, I'm still in that healing process, but I'm mostly out of it for the most part. I'm well over that relationship and into another one, but I still have to catch myself from time to time and stop myself from doing things or saying things as a result of the trauma that I experienced from that previous relationship.
From previous
And I have a good friend of mine that I have to call on sometimes. I have to catch myself, Kim, my ship. I don't know, she might be on, but I have to be like, ship, should I do this? Should I? She was like, no, stop. That's, you know, you can't do that. This is a different guy. You can't, you know, you carry that stuff over into your next relationship. So you have to be really careful not to allow that trauma to go over into your relationship. And it's good to have somebody that you can lean on and talk to and go to and say,
honestly,
you know, should I do this? Should I say that? And so you be like, no, don't do that. This is a different person. So trust God, pray, journal. And those are the things that worked for me and helped me to get to where I am now. And I'm living my best life right now. I'm in my season right now. And hey, get it. I'm gonna write a book, but I'm gonna write a book one day, Dot, on narcissism, honey, because I can.
You need to. Okay. Tasha came up in here at the end. I see you, sis. Let me say this. Y'all got me at 9:04. I don't even believe this.
No.
I should have known what I should have done. What I know now, what I've learned tonight is when we get 5 minutes past the hour mark, it's gonna be a part 2. Okay, you just need to go back. But this was I mean, what you've shared is invaluable. My pain has turned into my passion, which is why I'm here, because I don't want anybody to hurt alone. And that's the purpose for these shows. That's the purpose for the group. So people hear somebody else's story and they know that they're not alone, and you all were authentic and transparent. And I appreciate that. And that, like I said, you didn't consider it robbery to tell the whole truth, to be vulnerable in this space for folks to know that what you've experienced, they can identify it. They can make choices to leave. You talked about how you were able to exit and what that process looks like. And then also reiterate that, guess what? It's ongoing, right? It's ongoing. There's not a particular point where, oh, you wake up, you're like, I'm healed. You say, I'm functionally healed, right? But it continues to be a process. And so to find ways to be able to admit it, identify it for yourself, and do what you need to do to care for yourself. Like Camille had said, there's certain situations I'm not going to allow myself to be in. I don't care who it is. Tiffany, before she left, talked about how important it is to identify that in all of our relationships, work relationships, friendships, platonic relationships, as well as intimate partners. And then, like I said, you just gave us some very important tools to use moving forward. Dr. Frazier had said in the comments about forgiving ourselves and how important that is.
Absolutely.
To forgive yourself, because those things don't come to us. Sometimes we're waiting for that person to say something to us. That's never going to happen. But to say, you know what, you did the best you could with what you had at that time, given everything that happened to you in the past and everything that was happening in the present. And so when we can forgive ourselves, then we can truly begin to heal and continue to heal. So I appreciate, like I said, your participation tonight. I appreciate our virtual studio audience. And like I said, whatever happened to our feed in the group, I have no idea. But like I said, I will make sure that the YouTube link is available so everybody can see the show in its entirety. And so join us next week. We're going to talk about long-term marriages and find out, how did folks stay? Did they really choose each other, or JJ just luck out. We're going to talk about that next week, but this is all for Friday Night Live tonight with Dr. Kim, the relationship renovator. If you got a relationship, I'm going to help you fix it. You're trying to find one. We'll help you get one together that you can live with and enjoy. If you would like some life coaching, relationship coaching, talk about your stuff, you can find me on Facebook. It's Kimberly King. You can find YouTube channel, Dr. Kim, the Relationship Renovator, or you can also contact me through the Complete Suite and book your session. See, talk about your stuff. I just got a new couch over here. We're breaking in. Folks that get delivered with a T. So, come on, I'll find some time on the calendar for us to talk about it. But thank you for your time and attention. Good night.
Enjoyed you guys. Thank you.
Good night. This was great.